Good morning, good evening. Hello, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under weekend review. My name is Anthony McGuire. We are going to be reviewing Celtic versus St Johnstone. Joined this week with Richard. Good to have you back again, Richard.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
And I've also got Paul, who's back off holiday. Paul, how you going?
Yeah, good. Much like yourself, had a busy day. First day back at work for me, so a little bit hectic. Been a bit going on in my absence, which has been somebody else's problem for 3 weeks. So yeah, but it'll be becoming my problem very quickly. So yeah, nice to be on having a chat about Celtic instead of thinking about work.
Fantastic. Yes, I've had a very busy day, so I do apologise. We're around 5 minutes behind schedule. That is totally my fault. But I had a sick staff member today, and I've just been run off my feet. This guy is also giving me grief. So if you hear any yelling throughout the podcast, that's just Monty just getting his little word in as Celtic managed to, we'll say, cruise to victory. I would think that it was a fairly comfortable night in the office for a change. I was sitting with the game watching it with my old man who was up from Bustleton for the weekend, so that was refreshing. Yeah, we kept each other awake, and well, who am I kidding? We had our power nap on the couch before the game. We certainly enjoyed it, and I think 3-1 probably flattered St Johnstone to a certain degree, but it was pretty slick for the most part. Paul, I'll give you first dibs since you haven't been on in a few weeks. How are you feeling coming into the match? Your arch nemesis Liam Stills had picked up a knock the day beforehand, so he was unavailable. So the centre half shuffle continued. Carter Vickers obviously deemed fit and started. And the only other major change from memory was Kyogo starting up front in place of Adam Ida, his first start since a 1-1 draw against Kilmarnock. Take it away, Paul.
Yeah, so I know I've moaned about Scales. He's got his limitations. Don't want to consider him as a boo boy. I think the problem is with the other injuries we've got, you don't feel overly confident about whoever was going to be, Welsh or Lagerbielke. It was a toss a coin thing. You thought it would probably be Welsh just because of how, the position has been of those players. He's been more favoured, and Lagerbielke is probably colder than the Arctic Circle in Sweden of late. So you didn't expect him to be the first pick. But with the injuries you've got, it's like I say, it's a coin toss whether Scales had played or not. I think the crucial thing about the defense is CCV being there. He just exudes confidence, and that flows through the whole team. So if he's playing, whoever's partnering him looks better and is better than they would be if he wasn't next to him. So I thought Welsh had a good game. We'll get into the nitty-gritty on that later. But generally, as you say, the team was sort of as expected. I was glad to see Kyogo start. I feel like up until this point, it's almost been whichever striker is scoring and in form, play them. And he had the jersey for a few games. He didn't play that great against Livingston, and the wee man came on and scored a great goal, and that's probably in the current environment, that's probably enough to get you your pick. So it was good to see him get that pick and sort of then justify his position. So I thought the first 15-20 minutes was a bit stodgy and lacking in a wee bit of intensity, but we really picked up that intensity from the middle of the first half and sort of pushed that through, and we should have won more comfortably in the end, and some of the old concerns were around. But generally, it's the kind of performance that gives you a little bit of hope that, I'm reasonably optimistic at the best of times, but that's been beaten out of me over the last few weeks and months. But there was enough there, along with some we've seen, apart from obviously the hiccup at Hearts, which we will point the finger firmly at the officials, and I know everyone has done. I wasn't here for it, thankfully. I think there's a bit of optimism there. Some players are returning to form. We've now got the international break. we've got other players coming back. So yeah, good day at the office.
Richard, what was your feeling before the game, and what was your overall take of the performance and the result?
Yeah, hoping for a good win. I thought it was. I thought Kyogo, and I think you've mentioned at the title, Kuhn looks like he's settling down very well. I think Brendan Rodgers said that after the game. I think they linked up very well. A couple of good connections for both of the first 2 goals. Good to see Celtic top of the league going into the international break. I think nice that there was a bit of a downpour in Dens, but I think that actually plays quite nicely for us for this coming tranche of the season to come. There's only 7 goals in it. Celtic and Rangers have the same goal difference. We've scored 7 more goals than them, so we're going to have to focus and keep that one going. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those. It's come back to what Paul was saying. That we did see the pain of the Hearts game, and it was a difficult watch. Interesting VAR decision early on, 26th minute, when Celtic were having a wee game of shooty in, and the ball was deflected, and the game at Hearts where the ball was falling from stardust and striking the back of an arm, that was a penalty, but suddenly a ball diverted off the line by a moving arm below the t-shirt level, off the line, diverted for a corner, that's not a penalty. It's just, anyway. Major take, delighted, great one.
You can imagine how my father took that one. But we may as well talk about it now because we brought it up. But I mean, you're scratching your head, going, well, if that's goal bound and he's got his arm in the way, and like I said, it was sort of sticking out and it was not in a natural position or whatever.
It's a penalty.
It's a penalty, and I mean, is it not a red card as well? Is that a red card as well? Because you're stopping a goal.
It's a red card. He's on the line. A goal's going opportunity. It's all of the above.
Is that maybe not the reason why we didn't get it? Because no referee's going to give us a red card and a penalty, just as a wee helping hand, which is with we're green and not blue. I don't know, Paul. On this one, you get the final say on it. What did you make of the handball that wasn't?
We're veering into tinfoil hat stuff, aren't we? We like a little bit like
the tongues in cheek.
I've already said elsewhere, and we've got at least one commentator in the comments that's seen my performance already tonight, someone else. So I'll be consistent.
Be consistent.
I'll be consistent. The problem, so there's 2 issues here. I'll kind of take them hand in hand and then separate them. The handball rule in the penalty box these days has got so convoluted and so complicated. You can pretty much, if you're a fan or a ref, you can interpret anything how you want it to look, right? So VAR and the ref have said it's on or above the t-shirt line, and it's an unavoidable contact and/or his arms in a reasonably natural position. So I think there's wording in there about an unavoidable contact. Here we go. Mahesh is in there again. I saw this earlier. And look, Mera hits it from about 1.5 yards. So he hasn't, I've heard people say, there's a movement towards the ball, a slight movement. If there is, it's just a human sort of flinch. Like he's not really got any time to do anything. So that's how they've interpreted it. And under the current rules, they're entitled to interpret it like that. The point I made earlier, and I'll repeat again for anyone who wasn't tuning into the previous thing I was on, is that it's a farce. The points you've kind of made, if you're standing on the goal line and it hits your arm and it stops a certain goal, I don't give a shit whether it's accidental, in purpose, unavoidable contact, avoidable contact, above the t-shirt line, below the t-shirt line. I don't give a shit about any of that. If it hits your arm or hand and you're standing on the goal line and it otherwise would be a goal, it should be a penalty kick. And it should also not mean that you have to have a yellow or a red, because then that takes some of this accidental shit out of the picture. I've got excited about this. Excuse my language, but there should be an interpretation of the rule where it's an accidental handball, but it's stopped a definite goal. and therefore a penalty is awarded, and probably that's the extent of the punishment. There probably isn't a need for a yellow because it's not deliberate. It definitely doesn't need to be a red. So I would say the penalty, you can call, but at this point, you can call anything a penalty or not in the box. You can find because the rule is so convoluted. I wanted a penalty. I would have expected a penalty, but as the rules get unrolled and explained in detail, there's enough in there to say, well, it's not a penalty for these reasons, and then there's enough to go, well, it should be a penalty for these other reasons over here. So luckily, and it didn't impact us in the long run, and really that was the sort of the catalyst. It was just around that period, middle, like 22. That was the 25th minute, I think. 23 minutes. We just started to, like, the first 15-20 minutes were pretty stodgy. They weren't intense. We weren't operating quick out of the blocks, and things were going going awry, and passes were being misplaced. But I think just around that point, we were starting to really ramp it up, and maybe not getting that decision was part of the continued catalyst to push on. So in the end, it sort of nudged us towards a much more better period of play.
Well, I'd had a couple of decent strikes in that early stage. Yeah. I seem to remember
we've got a few comments. Sorry, Richard. We've got a few comments in just around that penalty.
I was about to bring them in. So
no, it's cool.
So Dr. Strangelove, hail fellas, hail to you too. We'll come back to your stats one in a minute because that's going to be my next lead-in point. But Maesh just calling you a bit of a media star there, Paul. You're getting around.
I wouldn't go that far.
You floozy. Media darling. So Maesh is saying here that the convention, not the rule, is if the arms are below 5 or 7 o'clock, then it's not a penalty. I think the thing for me was that it was on Celtic TV, and the coverage of Celtic TV, we've talked about how bang average Celtic TV is as a product. But at no point did we get a still image or a slow-mo of that incident. It was just played at full speed, and it was like, make your own mind up. And it's like, if this happened in England, because last night I sat with my dad and watched Chelsea versus Leicester, and that was a bonkers game. That Chelsea ended up winning 3-2 in the end. Leicester got a man sent off after getting back to Twitch. Anyway, but the point I'm making is the coverage is just so superior. Like just the camera angles, the coverage, the commentary, just everything about it. And that was the BBC doing it. So it wasn't even like it was Sky Sports. It was just the BBC.
And the Celtic TV feed is just taking the live pictures off the local broadcaster. So presumably, I assume, and then overlaying their commentary on it. Are they not? So presumably that's who showed the game on Saturday night, Sky, presumably?
No, it wasn't. It was just it was only on Celtic TV.
Oh, it's only on Celtic TV, of course. It's a home game at 3 o'clock. Right, okay. So it's just
but like it's like that was a major incident in the game, and you didn't get any sort of real still image or anything. I just was like, Anyway, just a comparison between the two. Like, there's the product. It just needs a polish. It needs more, but unfortunately, we're not getting it, and it's sad, really, because the passion's there and the support's there. It's just I say we just let ourselves down with some of that. Maesh makes another valid comment here. Fans need to have real-time VAR commentary, and I think and Ange mentioned this last year, and I totally agree. Is that just if you're in the stadium, you've absolutely no idea what's going on. Like, you've got a screen saying VAR check in progress, and that's it. And then that could go on for, some of those VAR checks felt like they went on forever. And Brendan Rodgers acknowledged it in his press conference after the game, saying that, we play on the edge. We really take it to, like, you're talking sort of millimeters, and, it's just that very fine line sort of thing. So, he's understanding that, VAR needs to get involved. But there was one where Maeda ran offside, and there was daylight between him and the centre half, and then that still took minutes to decide that was offside. And it's like, you could clearly see he was off. I don't know. I just think that the whole process just needs to, I don't want to spend more time on that particular sort of thing, but it's just bit of a bugbear, and it rears its head from time to time, and particularly when Kyogo's in his mojo, which, like I said, the title of the show is Kuhn and Kyogo clicking, because I felt like that was the best game I've seen Kyogo play in quite some time. However, a lot of that's down to the service and the balls that he was receiving right from the get-go, because I remember Bernardo played one in the first 5 minutes, trying to search for him and find him, and just didn't quite come off. But we kept trying it all through the game, and he just looked a totally different player. So that was nice. Richard, I'm coming to you in a second. So these are the statistics for the match. So 73, I read it, but Sydney was 74% possession. So that's a little bit higher than the 70% average for the season. Our corners looked pretty dangerous. We had 10 of those. And 21 shots on goal, 9 on target. And we just, like I said, it just seemed to click on the weekend. I know St Johnstone haven't been travelling terribly well. Craig Levine, only 4 wins against Celtic in his whole managerial career out of 41, including the game on the weekend, out of 41 starts. Dominant performance. Take it away. What was some of the sort of things that you saw because we're saying it's good performance. So what made that a good performance? Because we've been watching some pretty turgid stuff this season. So we're hoping this is
It was tempo and intensity. It was all the things that went well when they pumped Dundee in the first half at Celtic Park. They played at pace. They were finding each other. They were making space for each other. They were finding angles. Some of the attacking play was brilliant. Kuhn involved in a lot as well. Maeda, a lot of chasing and tracking back. He's been creating and scoring in recent weeks. He was doing an awful lot of tracking back. I think the only real change was when Iwata went to, and I thought Iwata had a good game as well, by the way, when he had to switch back to central defence when CCV came off. And actually that was the one time in the game that we began to look, and it comes back to what Paul was saying, CCV just makes such a massive difference in defence. When Holmes switched to midfield, I thought we looked a little bit less fluid, and certainly it took a bit of time for the tempo to pick up again. With Jamesy Forrest getting a goal was a very nice addition to the day's proceedings. The other bit. I still come back to this kind of central defence. Actually, the Lagerbielke ball in the air and should probably, arguably, not have been an opportunity, and would have been a different situation had CCV still been on the park. So, really interesting attacking play, very, very high tempo. That's what I enjoyed about it most. And I think that's what makes the difference. I think against Hearts, arguably that kind of hiccup was when the tempo wasn't there. It was a sluggish start and expecting Celtic to come out of the traps.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Took us to the 40th minute to actually score our first goal. Obviously, the handball incident, we had one chalked off. Kyogo sort of just, unfortunately, just an arm offside. I think it was. It was not a lot in it for the one that he sort of nodded home, but it was Kuhn who was the provider, Paul, and that led to a Kyogo jumping header. What did you make of that goal? Obviously, that broke the deadlock, and then I guess we need to tie that into Kuhn's performance as well, particularly in that first half.
Yeah, it'd been coming. We had them under siege at that point. Obviously, like I said, it started from the penalty claim, and I rudely cut off Richard earlier on with the commentary, but he was right. There's Tomoki Iwata had a couple of shots on goal, at least one of which he should have probably done better. Good save on the other. The one where it's blocked on the line, you're just thinking, put your foot through it, and you probably, smash it straight through the middle, really, and you probably score. And he goes for accuracy more than anything, and the defender just manages to squeeze it away on the post. But yeah, getting back to Kuhn, he looked dangerous in parts, but he was looking dangerous. Obviously, he had a lot of praise after the game, and he deserves the praise. But for me, he was only really a genuine threat when he came inside. And he'd done that even in that early part of the game, which I'd said was lacking in intensity. And he was the bright spark. He was coming in off his wing. And he wasn't quite making that link up. But my one criticism of him early in the game was he cut inside a couple of times, and you just thought, put your foot through it, have a crack. And he didn't. He was looking for little intricate passes, and things were breaking down. And when he did try and go on the outside, which wasn't very often, he sort of didn't really look like he had full belief that he could get round the outside and cut something back or whip something in with danger. And he sort of found himself running up blind alleys when he went outside. But when he did come inside, he looked good. And that cross is just inch perfect, not dissimilar to the assist was it the game before? He had a very similar assist. I just sort of, bent it into an area that's dangerous. Kyogo, managed, Rogers said it, you mentioned it, he was playing right on the line as he does. And he managed to time his run this time perfectly. And he's really brave. Like, the keeper's coming. He knows the keeper's coming. And a lesser player would have potentially either taken his eye off the ball and not made the header as accurate and not scored, or just shied away and sort of fluffed it because he knew he was going to get hit and potentially hurt. So, it was brilliant. The wee man, thoroughly deserved his goal, and he was a menace all day. He had the ball in the back of the net 3 times in the first half. And again, we're right on the wire. He's only offside for one of them. Unfortunately, Miera strayed off on the other.
Yeah.
You're right. The other one it was really marginal. And he was also, and I know I'm straight into Kyogo as opposed to Kuhn here, but he's also playing way offside against defense, which I love. Like, he's just playing 5-6 yards offside because he knows he's not first receiver, and then dropping back in the line, and it's a mayhem for defender to try and manage. And it's really kind of, it's early days, but there's enough there to, in a season where we've not had a lot to hang on to, and it's been stop-start, there's a little bit to hang on to there to be optimistic that, Kuhn and Kyogo are starting to click. Because one of the biggest complaints we've had all season, and we did have this complaint a little bit in the Ange tenure as well, is Kyogo makes amazing runs and players don't see it. And Kuhn seems to be getting on the same wavelength. And if he can continue that, and a few other players are starting, O'Reilly was finding Kyogo. We'll get on to the goals. Iwata was. Taylor plays a brilliant ball in for Kuhn's goal.
Don't steal my thunder, Paul.
That's okay. But we're starting to see those, where we've missed all season, we're starting to see those so a few players starting to find Kyogo's runs, and you could see the confidence is flowing through him, and by in turn his teammates, because they were like, he's back. And if he can kick on from here, and as a unit we can keep finding him, is NFC and if CCV, there's a few FC, and if CCV stays fit, there's enough there to think that we have got the firepower to go on and win this league. So early days, but we're game to game at this point. There's 8 or 9 games of the season left.
8 cup finals, 9 cup finals,
8 or 9. Yeah, I think 8 league games and a semi. So maybe 10. Hopefully 10 games, 10 cup finals.
Richard, we go in 1-0 at the half. You're probably thinking we probably could have been, 2 or 3 to the goods, but in 1-0, obviously happy to have broken the deadlock on the 40th minute. We come out early in the second half, basically first minute, and Greg Taylor, as Paul's just mentioned, wonderful curling pass, finds Kyogo, the inside channel. Kyogo does his simple thing, beats his man, cuts the ball across, and Kuhn with the Abada-like tap in at the back post. What excited you about that goal? And give me your take on the Kuhn Kyogo show, because up to that point they were the dual menace that was just tormenting St Johnstone's back 5 block, as it were.
I'll try not to repeat stuff that you guys have already said. Kuhn, when you see him on the reels before he joined Celtic, it was that kind of cutting in from the wing that he was particularly good. It's very, very quick. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet. I actually thought it was a super finish. I've seen any number of those types of finish completely fluffed and either skied over the bar or bouncing off a goalkeeper's body. So I thought it was a very well taken goal. And I also think Greg Taylor, and you, again, I like Greg Taylor a lot. I think he contributes a great deal. He's very mobile. If you see where that pass came from, positionally, that's not what you would normally associate Greg Taylor being. He was popping up all over the place in support of attack, kind of a la Ange, but it's not Ange ball. But I think that he has contributed enormously in recent weeks. I think he's a very sound performer, and we'd really miss him if he wasn't there. And I think that gives us stability to the defence. So all of the above, all of the conditionals that Paul has mentioned. Kuhn, I think, is probably the most exciting signing that we've had for a wee while. It seems like the kind of some of the Korean boys have fallen out of favour in terms of even their bench appearances or appearances from benches. I think Brendan Rodgers seems to trust him, and he seems like a confident player. And those of you who will remember the history, I remember hesitating slightly when I heard that Kuhn was coming from Rapid Vienna. Are we going to be giving them a transfer fee? I know it's slightly off the message, but I remember the Rapid Vienna gates back in the day, and seeing some of the contributions that he made in the Austrian league when you go back, the speed and the delivery, it's all there. I'm really excited for the next few weeks. I think we've got a decent chance. I wasn't saying that after the Hearts game.
No, that's
sorry, Anthony. I was just going to say the one thing on Kuhn that I'm waiting to see, and we saw he was awful against Motherwell, but we saw one run down the line where he got the gas on and he went, and unfortunately he sort of lost control of it. He didn't know what he was going to do with it by the time he got to the box, but he was lightning, and we saw that in the clips. And by all, somebody was saying earlier, elsewhere, he's apparently almost as quick as Maeda. So I want to see him get that stride opened up and start running it at teams. And hopefully as the confidence comes, we will see that, because he has been a little bit short bursts and sort of not really opening up the full pace and running away. And I know against low blocks, that's some of the issues, but I would like to think that it's also a bit of confidence and over time he's going to add that in as well, because we know he's got it in his locker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was an Austrian journalist who commented on his transfer to Celtic when he first came in the door, and I think the major criticism of his play is that final delivery. Like his finishing's okay, he's got the speed, but it was just that final ball. And I think there were a couple of occasions where he maybe could have made a better choice. Like, there's a couple of times he cut it back and he just basically landed in the goalkeeper's sort of midst sort of thing. He didn't really pick anybody out or just didn't quite get it right. So I think there's always room for improvement. And, and obviously you with Dyson made another wing who's either Pele or me, depending on where he's trying to cross the ball sometimes. So you've got to take the good with the bad. But I think, there's definitely a player there. And I'm glad that he's showing it early, and I'm glad he's showing it with 8-9 games to go. If we can get this solid base, a more stable starting 11 without the constant changes due to injury, I think that would be great. Maesh makes a bit of a good point here. He's sort of saying Kyogo's 34 goals. You're looking at Moy, Jota, Hatate, obviously O'Reilly as well, providing half his assists, and three of those players aren't there anymore. And so it's just, I think if we can get some decent service from out wide, and Kuhn's just offering something a little bit different, then hopefully it all bodes well for the run-in. Because as you said, Paul, if Kyogo's fit and firing, and there's no one in Scotland who can keep up with them and keep them out. So that would be nice. Take the opportunity now, guys, if you are listening. So it's 76 of you live on at the moment. If you're not following us already, please, all the socials are at the top there. You feel free to like and subscribe to the video. Liking this video does help other like-minded Celts see what we're doing and spread the Celtic Down Under love. We are one of 3 podcasts that go out every week. So there's the Pot Noodle that goes out earlier than us. They talk more about general of what's happened over the weekend. We give you your weekend dissection of Celtic's performance. And then there's also a Thursday show as well, which sort of leads into the weekend and covers any Europe or midweek action. So, give it a bit of a watch. And that's Monty saying his seal of approval as well. Richard, you mentioned it earlier. You brought it up. You're a huge fan of James Forrest. He came off the bench on had it in front of me, the 63rd minute, along with Daniel Kelly. You probably sort of say the game went a wee bit ropey for 5-10 minutes, and then he sort of, but probably for 5 minutes actually, and then he sort of found the back of the net. Talk me through James Forrest's goal and what did bring a smile to your face? Him, a Celtic legend, getting back in amongst the goals.
I can't remember enough about it other than the fact that he struck it beautifully and it went in so sweetly, and it was actually quite unexpected. It's so lovely to see James Forrest back and so lovely to see him contributing in that way.
Well, I when the ball came to him, I said to Dad before he even hit it, I said, that's the sort of ball you want to James Forrest, because he still had a bit to do. Like he sort of took it from his right onto his left and set himself up, but the finish into the bottom corner, keeper no chance. And you're just thinking that like a lot of other players would have went for power and blasted it over the bar or whatever, but he's just placement, get himself set, placement, power at the bottom corner. It was a great goal. And just at that moment in time, he made the changes, make it 3-0. Safe as houses in, game's done. 2-0 is always a dangerous lead, but 3-0 just takes it out of reach, really more reflective of where we should be, because the XG for the overall game is 3.9, so we really should have scored 4 goals. That makes it 3. And you're sort of thinking, good that he's back. And I was saying to my dad, I said, good option to have coming off the bench. He's obviously not been fit because he's not featured in the squads for a while. So, he's obviously one of these ones that's sort of fallen under the radar a little bit. And I think, Paul, we're hopeful that after once he's killing me here, after the international break, we could have the likes of Hatate back, Kyle McGregor back, we could have Narowski back, Stales will be back, and obviously James Forrest is back. So I mean, there's possibilities that we could have the strongest team we've probably put all season when we come back off come after the break. I'm going to mute my microphone. Paul, say something.
Yeah, it's spot on. Like, we've been so light on players, and in various positions, centre back and wings particularly, we've been constantly rotating for form and fitness. To have, we've got to be careful it's not another false dawn. There's a few, multiple times this season we've thought, we're turning the corner, or we've often talked about, CCV will be back, or hopefully Hatate will be back, or hopefully this player will be back. And in the case of Hatate, I don't think it can be underestimated how big an addition he would be if he's even slightly close to full fitness. An 80%, 90% Hatate for the run-in would do me. It's Bernardo's great. He's still a young kid. He's dipped in, he's been up and down in terms of form. He's in a little dip at the minute. But Hatate, it's 80, 90% even if he's only playing 60 minutes here and there. I said earlier, Kyogo, CCV, they could be enough to fire us the title. Hatate, add him to the mix. And even if it's 2 from 3, you've probably got you certainly got a lot more firepower. No one else really does what Hatate does in terms of driving the game forward and looking to play between the lines. Plus, he's got goals in him as well as assists. So, it's the whole Celtic fan base keeping everything crossed that he is genuinely on that timeline. McGregor's a massive miss. Iwata, Rich is right. Iwata had a decent game without being spectacular, but it's unfair of anyone to expect him to perform at the level of our probably most consistent player for the last decade. So McGregor is one of these players who a lot of fans have a pop at him, and think he's, you know, I think he's not really appreciated quite as much until he's not there. So he's been a massive miss. Just having more options at centre back would be great. You know, I'm still not sure Nawrocki is the final, so you know, the final best pick longer term. I think we still might need to find a partner for CCV longer term, but I think he's probably the best at the club. So if he's available even to be rotated through, that's good. So just having the depth is what we've been missing. We've been, one of the reasons I think, you know, O'Reilly's had a lot of negative criticism since the turn of the year, and the following the winter break, and obviously a lot of that's been mentioned. It's, you know, his head's been turned by the Atletico Madrid story. I just think he's flogged. I think he's been playing nearly every game because there isn't any.
He has played every
good
game.
enough quality. There isn't good enough. There isn't good, and he's been playing 90 minutes most of the time. So it was good to see him get, you know, a few minutes of a break. And if Itati's back, and you know, if Itati can come back and play even 45, 60, and then 70 minutes, you can rotate him and Bernardo and O'Reilly. And if Iwata's, you know, got a few minutes of him, you know, and Cal's back, you've suddenly got a robust midfield that you can kind of go, well, he can fill in for 20 minutes, half an hour, and we're not that much diminished. And so that's strength from the bench, but also a consistency of selection. Like, one of the reasons we've not had any, well, it's all been so stop-start and so disjointed and a lack of fluidity, is because the team's constantly changing in key positions. Centre-back pairing, barely played two centre-backs the same all season. The wingers have chopped and changed consistently, part form, but mainly form and a bit of injury. But obviously, I think Kuhn, Taylor and Johnson, that was the first time we've played, you know, those four back-to-back matches. And so the start of, you can see some understanding. And I think O'Reilly is playing himself back into some form. It didn't really all come off for him on Saturday, but little bits and pieces did. And I think he's hopefully only a game or two away from just it properly clicking into gear, and then you go, because you saw him getting some form back when Yang and AJ were linking in with him, and then obviously that got pulled apart because of the red card, but you started to see him click a little bit again with Kuhn. So I think O'Reilly will be important in the running, but it would be great for him to get rotated out, even if it's only for 15, 20 minutes, to rest him so he's not paying 95, 100 minutes every single week.
It wouldn't
Just
be a
to-
Celtic. Richard, go for it.
No, I was going to say, just to pick up on that point, Paul, a bit. I think this is the most balanced Celtic have looked for weeks and weeks, and I think weirdly, I think Kuhn has been that sort of missing link. I do agree, O'Reilly, he's toast. I mean, the international break coming up, I hope he's not going to be playing 90 minutes for Denmark on both occasions. But I really think that it's the first time that they've looked settled, confident in possession. And I know we've seen the kind of great Celtic performances, not so good next week, and very inconsistent. And Dundee was probably the first half there. That's the only other time I've seen them in the last several weeks where I thought, actually, there is a bit of a rhythm here. And it's good to see, because I think everyone knows what they're trying to do. It's just getting that consistency. I agree with you.
Oh, Dr. Strangelove agrees with you, Richard. Great point, Richard. Balance. Yes, there you go.
I think picking up on that and Richard's earlier point, Greg Taylor does deserve a big pat on the back for his performances in recent weeks. He's obviously been a much maligned individual, but he's still the best available left back at the club.
He's the only left back available at the club.
Currently, well, Mitchell Frame, but and that there's an issue there, obviously. But one of the things that can happen when you're guaranteed a start, your performance level can potentially drop off, and it never really does with Taylor. You can argue the point that he isn't good enough for the Champions League, etc., but he's more than good enough for the Scottish Premier League. And I agree with Richard earlier.
He's a leader.
He is a leader. He's a leader in the dressing room, and he's a leader on the pitch. And he has been finding those pockets in midfield. He's like an additional midfielder, and he was been finding all sorts of positions. Right, sometimes he's in the inside right of the midfield channel, and sometimes he's the main holding midfielder, and then he's attacking and he's making runs both for and without the ball. So Taylor's been great. AJ's still been hit and miss, but there's more hits than misses with him in the last 2 or 3 games. He's still, sometimes his distribution is a bit slack. He's giving away cheap possession, but he's another one. He looks like he's clicking with Kuhn a wee bit. He's working with O'Reilly, and so hopefully he's playing away. He's unlucky. But for a toe of James Forrest in the build-up, he'd have had a brilliant goal. That was, the third goal that got chopped off. And it took an age to find the picture, that showed it. But obviously he was well on. Yeah. So it was clearly Forrest's foot in the lead up, which fair enough. But I think that we are starting to click in different parts of the pitch, and if we can be consistent in selection and form, then it does bode well. Let's hope that the international break is not an actual break on form, and it just gives us time to sort of get the fitness levels up and get more people back.
I think with AJ, there's a few times where he probably took Kuhn's space a little bit. So I think just that understanding and just getting that overlap working, and when it did work, it looked really good and it's very effective. But it's just making sure he's not getting in the road and taking the space, or if he is going, he's dragging a defender with him and sort of creating the space for Kuhn. So I think, like I say, it's a work in progress. And I think you can see with Taylor and Maeda, they've been playing in that left side now for the last 3 or 4 games, so they're starting to get that understanding going again. And you can't underestimate a settled team when certain players are playing in the same position. You do get familiar with movements and trigger movements, and the way Celtic play, you've got to be you're talking milliseconds, just releasing the ball at the right time and beating the offside trap sort of thing. So it wouldn't be a Celtic performance if we didn't obviously discuss the one negative, which was the goal that we conceded in the it was 81st minute, if I'm not mistaken. 81st minute, Connor Smith, who came off the bench on the 74th minute. We made some changes in the 75th minute. We brought Kyogo home on for Carter Vickers. Brought Adam Eade on for Kyogo Farashi. And at that point, rather than bringing on Lager Bielka as a straight swap for Carter Vickers, Rodgers, I feel, maybe made a wee bit of a boo-boo and drops Awata into centre half. I don't know what Lager Bielka's done, but clearly he's so far down the pecking order, it's not funny. And then that unfortunately sort of contributes to the goal that we concede. Richards, what's Lager Bielka done? Is he?
So he was in the Swedish media last week, belly aching about his lack of game time. I have a very, very good working knowledge of people who report on Swedish media. I don't know any Swedish at all, but it was in the paper that he was unhappy about his lack of game time at Celtic, and he was going to go and have to find somewhere where he could go and get some game time. So yeah, that won't have endeared him to anyone, but I'm sure they've been having a discussion behind the scenes at Celtic Park about what actually happened during the interview. Nonetheless, look, it did unsettle us at the back. There was a bit more space. There was definitely a bit more confusion. They took the opportunity. I'm trying to erase it from my memory banks already. It was one of those kind of horrible moments.
Well, it was Stevie May doing Stevie May things, because he was the one who got the header on, and that forced the Joe Hart save, which led to the goal. But the Stevie May with a shaved head and a beard, it was like, what? I hadn't. Last time I saw Stevie May had long hair, so I was kind of like, is it the same Stevie May? Is it a different Stevie May?
It depends on which northern rock band he's in at the moment.
Well, this is true
for his weekend dance.
Jay-Z's look. Paul, does this just emphasise the importance of Cameron Carter-Vickers and just we don't eat water when he's not in the team?
Well, yeah, and the weird decision to not pick a centre back to replace him. Literally, I think within less than 60 seconds of him going off, there was a big muddle up between, I can't remember which players were involved, but Iwata was involved, maybe Johnson, maybe somebody in midfield. We were all over the shop within literally within 50, 60 seconds of him going off. And you just thought, here you go. This is why we need him on the pitch. And then the goal is just, it's just so reminiscent of so many goals we've lost this season where the whole defensive unit is culpable. It's hard to point your finger at one person individual. Yeah. We've just been praising Taylor. He gets caught under the ball and obviously May uses his superior height to his advantage. So you can say Taylor's at fault. Iwata's definitely at fault. A boy of his build and physique and strength shouldn't be getting bullied by the striker, falls on his backside in an attempt to clear it, and he leaves his man with a free shot at goal. I don't know where else Johnston is in all this. You know, the ball, there's no pressure. The ball starts on the right wing. Yeah. It gets shifted into just in front of the D. Between those moves, there's no pressure on the ball. Nobody comes out fast. I think probably Welsh doesn't press the ball when the player receives it on the D, but then it gets shifted out to their left, our right.
And he had
Alistair Johnston's Akers. He's completely posted missing. He's got time to get his head up. He picks his man out. Obviously, Taylor's got a disadvantage in height. May uses that. Hart, makes a decent save, but obviously it goes into danger area. I've heard a few people try to criticize Hart for that. I'm not having it. Like, he's moving in the wrong direction. It's a good reflex save. And he went absolutely ballistic, and he's right to.
Yeah.
He should, having pulled a save out of the bag like that, he's rightfully expecting one of his defenders to clear up the mess afterwards. Yeah. And they're all statuesque. How often have we, or how, not so much, how often have me and you sat here, Anthony, and bemoaned how badly we've operated as a defensive unit? And I think that's just another perfect example of, if CCV isn't on there to direct and cajole and manage and sort of breathe that confidence through and take ownership, we're pretty poor as a defensive unit. And luckily we had the buffer. But yeah, you're right. It's a blip in an otherwise good performance. If you want to get hypercritical, we should have scored more goals. Iwata,
on another day, it's another 6-1, isn't it? I mean, really,
well, it could quite easily have been. Obviously, Kyogo hits the underside of the bar. It's 2 chopped off. Johnson's is chopped off. Iwata could have had a hat trick. The one at the end, I've no idea how he managed to get that over the bar. It's harder to knock it over the bar than it is to knock it in the net. Yeah. But the upside of all of that is we created enough chances. We've sat here when we've created 4 or 5 chances and said we've created enough chances to win that game. We haven't taken any of them and we've lost. We've created maybe 8 or 9 really good chances and we've taken 3. We've had 3 chopped. So there's a lot more to be positive about than recent weeks. Yes, it's only St Johnstone, but at this point in the season, any positive performance and any good win, is something to hang on to. It's something to be delighted about, and it sets us up going into the run-in in a pretty positive position, about as positive as we could expect to be after what happened at Tynecastle the other week.
Yep, echo that.
I think it's just, like you say, good to go in on top. Yep, they've got our game in hand, but they're going to have to play that midweek at some point, back up at Dens Park. So enjoy that when it comes.
I was actually hoping that they were going to end up qualifying and Karabag were going to get through against Leverkusen and they would have to fly to Karabag and back again. But I don't want to get distracted.
They've ruined the coefficient. They've ruined the coefficient for everyone. We're now in danger of losing 10th place. Absolutely pitiful performance by them in Europe again.
Well, they'll have a few weeks to think about it before they play the next game. But anyway, I'm going to put Monty down, so this should end badly, but we'll see how we go. we're coming near the end of our show. I think we've covered off most of the talking points from the game on the weekend. So I'll give you both a chance to round up if there's anything that we've missed. I think you just touched on the few last chances there, Paul, because I'd forgotten about Iwata's header. Again, it's one of those ones where it's harder to miss, but he's looked up the heavens after that one, and he's just trying, like, how did I manage that? But not as bad as some of the efforts of Raheem Sterling last night. My goodness. Anyway, he was getting booed off by the Chelsea supporters when he got dragged. Richard, any other incidents? The only thing I was going to add, I hadn't said before, was that the referee seemed to get in the way a lot. Like, his positioning was chronic. Like, the number of times where he was barging into one of our players who was trying to shut the ball down, he was just, like, for me, it's like you're ball watching. You're not actually, like, being mindful of, where you are on the park, sort of things. That happened on a number of occasions. There's one that ended up being a drop ball. So that was probably the only criticism there that I had. I don't think it was a particularly dirty game. Their centre forward got booked. So he put a couple of late challenges, but I think other than that, it was pretty fair. Richard, anything that you wanted to sort of sum up on before we go to our man of the match or men of the match?
Paul, see if you can get a job at FIFA advising on the new penalty rules so that we can. I'm going to have to stop watching penalty incidents on VAR. It's just too much. It's too hard.
Paul, anything you want to add before we wrap up on that one?
Just quickly on the subs, great to see Kelly getting more minutes. Get best part of over half an hour with the time added on, and nothing too stand out, but equally nothing of any concern. So great to see sort of a young lad like that getting minutes and being trusted, and it just shows you that Rodgers is willing to give a pathway to youth if everything is going in the right direction. Vat has obviously been on the bench a lot. Be interested to see. He'll probably drop out of the bench as players come back from injury, and maybe Kelly will be as well. So, but it's good that they've been getting this opportunity well as that, and great to see home again. Nothing of much note, but I think there's a player in Odin Thiago home, and he's obviously been bought as a project, a prospect, whatever you want to call it. And if he's obviously a lot can change moving into next season, and let's focus on this season now. But just one point of note on that is if he's not really making the development for next season in terms of a key squad player, then I'd love to see us loan him out to somebody in the Scottish Premier League, a bit like what's happening with Kuhn currently and other players, because I think he could, in any other team in the Premier League, he'd probably be a superstar. So nice to see him get minutes again. Nothing untoward, nothing spectacular, but I think there's a player there. So yeah, one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting with Brendan Rodgers' comments. I think it was his pre-match press conference. He was saying that he felt he got criticism for playing Daniel Kelly against Hearts. And he said, well, it's important to take the opportunities when they're available to the blood young players and give them an opportunity. And obviously when it's the going's good, and when the going's not so good, sort of thing. So he's definitely one that's caught Brendan Rodgers' eye, because, like I said, he's sort of surpassed Thiago home in terms of getting minutes. So he's obviously catching the eye at training, and Rodgers is obviously going to utilize him in the run-in. Obviously, the flip side to that is obviously once if Hatate and McGregor do come back in, then you probably assume that he might be the one that could maybe drop out of the squad altogether. But while there's opportunities there, while there's injuries, then he's given someone a chance, and I think we've got to commend that. And if we can't do it against St Johnstone at home when we're 2 or 3-0 up, when are you going to be able to do it? Like I know you want to win every game, and you want to win every game by as many goals as possible, but there's got to be other metrics or other sort of things that you've got to be looking at as well. And if at the end of the season you say, well, that boy got the equivalent of 4 games worth of experience, then that's going to put him in such great stead for the following season. So it's not as much of a daunting thing. He's been to Tynecastle, he's played there, he's had people spitting and booing at him or whatever, and that builds resilience, and potentially turns players into better pros sort of down the line, sort of thing. So I think that's important.
And you're spot on. And Roger's been really complimentary about his attitude, and I think that's probably the thing that's maybe the thing that's pushing him ahead of Home, because we don't know what Home's attitude's like, but just some of the social media stuff early on, and he's got a really good pedigree and all of that. Maybe he's got a bit of an ego and an attitude potentially, and he isn't being quite as He maybe isn't being quite as diligent in his training and in his work ethic, which Rogers, anytime he's asked about the youth guys, he always talks about Kelly's attitude. And then I noticed he's been adding in Vata's attitude recently, which he wasn't when they first broke through together. So yeah, possibly that. Possibly if Rocco Vata's getting a good example from Daniel Kelly, and he's digging in as well. But yeah, I'm more than happy to see young players get their opportunity if they're up to it, which he looks like he is.
Alrighty, it's man of the match time. I think we might potentially have a split decision because there's a few players that fit the bill. I'll have the deciding vote. So, Richards, I'll let you go first. Who make your case? Obviously the Dafa bet man of the match was Kuhn.
Yep.
But don't let that sway you. You do your own way, Richards.
That was me going my own way, and that's who I decided actually on the evidence of what I'd seen. I thought it was. I'm excited about this prospect. I think he performed well. I think he contributed. We all know how he contributed. Yeah, really enjoyed watching him. It was a good display. Kuhn for me.
Paul, sorry. Yep.
Look, my honourable mention to Kuhn. I think it was easy for people to give it to Kuhn because he had a goal and an assist, and his performance level from the early games is night and day. But that's against a really, really low bar. And I'm cautiously optimistic about where his performance levels go from here. We were quick not to write him off. A lot of Celtic fans wrote him off very early on. And I said, despite how poor the performances were, it's unfair to judge a player that early on, that little of game time. And so, yeah, we were cautiously optimistic that he's got more to offer, and he certainly looked better. But there's another player that had a goal and an assist, and also had the ball in the back of net another couple of times, hit the bar, and was a constant menace, and looked like a player that has been our figurehead for the last 2 seasons. And I was delighted to see him back at that level of form and confidence. So Kyogo is the clear man of the match as far as I'm concerned. The sponsors can go and whistle. No offense, Richard. It's Kyogo all day long for me.
Alrighty. Before I give you my cast and vote, I'll bring up some of the comments because there are a few people sort of singing off. And so what we got here, we got Dr. Strangelove. He says honourable mentions to Dyson and Tomoki Iwata. I think Tomoki, if he'd scored his hat trick, he'd have been man of the match, but unfortunately, the goals let him down, or the lack of goals let him down. Jake's gone with Kyogo. He agrees with you, Paul. What else we got? This other one, Mickey Monaghan. He's saying that couldn't get man of the match, but the general consensus from my section was that CCV put in a commanding performance, and even Welsh lifted his game. I must admit, you can see the difference when Carter Vickers came off. Like, the team still was creating chances without Kyogo or Kuhn, but when CCV went off, we definitely. We dropped down a couple of gears, so I think that's definitely a strong sort of case for him. No, so that's it from the gallery. I'm going to go Kyogo as well, because I just think the wee man's back, and he got his start, he got his goal, he got his assist, he's got his mojo back, and he's gonna end up being league's top goal scorer. He's gonna start banging them in, and if we keep giving him the service that he's getting, he just looked up for it. And like Paul said, that header for the one was very brave, going across the goalkeeper like that. And yeah, he was a menace. And yeah, I just think that if he brings that sort of energy, dynamism to Mordor in a couple of weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, whenever it is, we should come away with hopefully with 3 points. So. Kyogo,
you wouldn't bet against him. You wouldn't bet against him being the match winner again in that fixture.
No,
lovely.
No.
It would be lovely.
But it would be great. And I thought Kuhn played really well. And Kuhn, Carter Vickers, I can say you can make a case for about half the team. I think there was some solid performances throughout the team, but
weirdly,
like I
said, weirdly on the the BBC the contributor vote,
player rate, I think.
Joe Hart got it on the player rating. Did he have a save to make beyond the one that ended up in the goal?
That's been bots. That's not people. It's got to be.
Yeah. So weird. Like he's had quite a few man of the match performances in recent weeks. When but for him, we would have dropped more points or the lost games. But he didn't have a whole lot to do.
The AI chatbot AI has malfunctioned there. So what are you gonna do? That's us on an hour. So, Richard, have you got anything that you watched in the weekend? Any recommendations? Anything that you want to
recommendations? Because I spent the inordinate amount of time that it takes to get from Sydney to Perth on a plane yesterday. I'm listening to an audiobook by Pat Nevin, Football and How to Survive It. It's good fun. Pat Nevin, who played quite a lot of football down south in England, obviously a renowned pundit at the BBC, and has just some fabulous stories about life of a professional footballer. So yeah, thoroughly recommend it. Football and How to Survive It by Pat Nevin. An audiobook as well as a writing book, Amazon, wherever you get your things like that.
Paul, what we got for us? You got a couple of weeks to store some up here. You've been on holidays.
I have. So I've got one just straight up album recommendation, and I've got one little music thing I want to sort of discuss quickly. So the album recommendation, I've been talking about it for weeks and weeks on singles, but Everything's new album came out on the 1st of the month. Mountain Head. It is as expected an absolute banger. So yeah, Everything. That album, get that in your lugs. And they are coming to Perth in a couple of months, so looking forward to seeing them. The other thing I just wanted to flag up was a story coming out of the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas. So for anyone that doesn't know, South by Southwest is like the biggest kind of, it's not just a music festival, but the music festival is a key part of it, and it's emerging artists and all the agents and record labels are at it, and it's a really good opportunity to put yourself in the shop window. Some are unsigned, most are signed, but not really at the beginnings of their career, maybe still on independent labels and the like. And quite often it gives European bands, British, Irish, the opportunity to break through. The entire Irish contingent that were slated to play, and they were organised to play together, decided to boycott the festival because the major sponsor was the US Army and a major arms contractor that supplied Israel. So they took a stand as a group, and every Irish artist refused to play. A Scottish band called Neon Waltz that I've mentioned once before played the first night, and then posted that they were also boycotting, and they were quite apologetic. They sort of felt their moral compass had been sort of wavering slightly, and they didn't really think it through. But they decided in hindsight they I think close to 100 bands ended up pulling the pin on the performance because of the support. Like it basically it was a Palestinian support decision. So I thought that was really good. The one of the big Irish bands, or vocal Irish bands, that were one of the first to do it, and that kind of led the charge. It's a band called Kneecap, which I'd never heard of this band, but I've done some research. They're a hip hop band out of Belfast, with a pretty Republican political bent, and they're worth a listen. Debut album. This has been second. I think. Well, there's something that's called an album on Spotify, but I think it's a kind of cobbled together of singles and other sort of releases. But I think the major debut album comes out in June. But there's quite a few songs on Spotify. So Kneecap, you can guess where they got their name from. Give them a listen. Pretty good position to take, I think, given how big a deal South by Southwest is. So hats off to all the artists that took a stand and potentially impacted their own kind of career position for for a bigger deal. So yeah, that was just another little musical thing I wanted to sort of mention and shout out.
It's good that some people have got to stand by their courage of their convictions, and yeah, hopefully there's a ceasefire there soon, and peace can allowed to happen. We'll just wrap up with a few comments. Maesh, Paul to replace Larry Emder on the chase. There you go. Dr. Strangelove, he recommends Shogun. Get it watched. It's on my list, Dr. Strangelove. Strangelove the Doctor, I should say. So I definitely want to sit down and watch that at some point. I've been too busy socializing and holding babies and everything the last couple of weeks. So I've had no time to watch any telly except for live sport. So I'll come back to you hopefully with something meaningful next week. Actually, I won't be coming back to you next week because we're going to be on international break. So we get a week off, as Celtic get a week off. So we'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
I am sorry, Anthony. I did have one more recommendation. TV. I can't remember if this has been if this may have been mentioned elsewhere. Like Criminal Record. Has anyone mentioned this in recent weeks?
No.
So Criminal Record is on. I think it's on Apple again. Their roster is amazing. Peter Capaldi and Kush Jumbo.
I've seen the trailer for this.
I've only seen 2 or 3 episodes. It's epic. Capaldi's. It's basically set in London police. Capaldi's, as you would expect, a craggy DCI. Kush Jumbo is this up and coming DS, and there's basically a current case meets an old case, and he's the previous main, senior investigating officer. And it's a bit of cat and mouse in terms of has he been doing the right thing or not, and is she pushing beyond the boundaries she should be? Meanwhile, there's a bunch of other stuff happening as well in the current climate. So it's stellar cast, excellently put together. Highly recommend it.
More TV to watch. Oh, jeez. Okay. Do my best.
Sorry.
Fantastic. It's been great to have you both on. It's the first time we've had a threesome in a while, in a totally footballing sense, football podcasting sense. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been great. We've had over 120 listeners tonight live, which is it's been our best yet this season. So thank you everyone for joining in and getting involved. Comment section was very lively tonight. So I appreciate everyone who was leaving their thoughts. Like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time from the aftermath of Livingston versus Celtic. The trip to Spaghetti Head awaits. So all that's left to say at the moment is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail.